It's daybreak here on Arise News, and it's time for the press preview. But a first look at what's on the front pages, and we start with our sister publication this day. 10th Assembly, Tinubu pulls all stops for Akpabio and Abbas. Unyielding Yeri determined to upset the apple cart, overwhelmed. Opposing camps disagree over a late Saudi senator's endorsement. Uzodinma, the most governor APC's choice, will emerge president of the 10th Senate. New Senate can't afford to fail Nigerians, says Bassi. No decision yet on appointing minority leaders. PDP declares 4 stars potentially stole more than $280 billion in COVID-19 relief funding. President signs students' loan bill into law, and below that, Tinubu inspects Guard of Honor to celebrate First Democracy Day as president. And above the nameplate, Access Bank launches first American Express cards for Nigeria. And at the top, Mas Waledu, Nigeria will unify exchange rates imminently.
All right, so let's take a look at The Guardian Nigeria this morning. Leading headline, lawmakers edgy in last-minute battle for Senate leadership. You have that picture of the president there, supposedly playing some chess game. All right, below that, heavy rains leave Lagos roads in shambles. And just beside that green strip there, about 500 billion naira lost to anchor borrowers program. At the bottom with the red strip, former Italian Prime Minister Berlusconi dies at 86. Some headlines at the top there, 52% of Nigerian professionals considering migration. That's from a survey. More on that on page 7. Meanwhile, indigent students to access education loans as Tinubu signs a law.
And the Daily Sun leads with the 10th National Assembly calls it Battle Day for Kalu, Akpabio, Yari, Abbas. A Yari Kalu camp hopeful of victory, says the first rider. APC governors stand by party zoning formula, says another. Northern elders won against imposition. Our southern elders back Yari's camp. Above that, you have Sirika lied about our fleet size, Dubai operations, Air Peace rebuttal to the exclusive interview with former Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, in Arise News there. You can find that on the Daily Sun today. Other stories on the front page. Democracy Day. Sanwo-Olu, Abiodun, Kingibe, Okpadokun, Odumakin, others charge Nigerians on democracy sustenance. While federal government is after all, says IPOB. Imo PDP planning protests in Abuja over insecurity, says government. And that's the front page of the Daily Sun.
All right, let's look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch on its front page. National Assembly. APC anointed candidates, rebels to slug it out. Of course, they'll be talking about Yeri. Others failed to step down for Akpabio. Abbas, as leadership poll holds, is in a Musa withdrawal. Lawan endorses Akpabio after Tinubu's meeting. All right, let's just down below that picture of Democracy Day. Buratai congratulates the president, beckons on United Nations to declare June 12th World Democracy Day in honor of MKO Abiola. Family demands presidential entitlements for Abiola. Anti-graft groups want NDIC probed.
All right, let's take a look at one more national daily. Nigerian Tribune this morning. Leading headline, Tinubu signs a student loan bill into law. All right, students to enjoy easy access to higher education through interest-free loan. And just above, June 12th, governors harp on national unity.
Okay, let's go to the foreign papers now. Yeah. Let's start with The Guardian. The Guardian UK, if we have it, yes. It's leading with the story of a woman who was jailed for procuring abortion drugs after the legal time limit had passed. It's saying there's protest to this jailing of the woman. All
right, let's look at the I paper. On its front page, it says the Russian agent living in UK with his family thanks to homes for Ukraine. Let's look at just one of the writers there. Alleged Russian intelligence asset is living in London, and his family used the British government's refugee scheme to join him. An investigation can reveal. Revelation reignites security fears about the program as Western intelligence officials express their anger that the man is now living freely in the UK. FBI suspects the Ukrainian businessman of being a foreign asset for Vladimir Putin's FSB agency, according to secret cache of documents seen by the paper. And then you see that Gove and Patel clashed repeatedly over deeper security vetting. Go to the next foreign newspaper.
The Financial Times this morning. MPs to grill city watchdog over Ode investigation. Some riders there, FCA open probe after 2021 report. 13 women allege sexual harassment. More headlines. Seat of power. Berlusconi dies at age 86, leaving big questions for Maloney's right-wing coalition. One more headline on the Financial Times. Investors pile into converting London offices as hybrid work reshapes sector.
Well, let's bring in Emmanuel Bello for the analysis of the top stories on the front pages now. Emmanuel Bello, great to see you. It's D-Day. There's hardly a national paper not carrying that story. But there still seems to be an issue. There is I think what paper put them as rebels, as those who are not aligning with the selection
As a bunch
of the party. Indeed, thank you, indeed. But, this day puts it as Tinubu pulls all stops for Akpabio and Abbas. But it also says, unyielding Yari determined to upset the apple cart, overwhelmed. What do you think?
Well, yeah, it's D-Day, this one like you put it, and it's, all editors looking at this story from various angles. These days, looking at it from the presidential angle, that's what the executive is doing to ensure that, you have a seamless kind of a new assembly. We follow the story till this point, and today's D-Day. It's come to a head today. And, Tinubu has had a very busy 24 hours, obviously, around the issue. And hopefully, we'll be able to rally support for his preferred candidate. Yesterday, his job got lighter with the stepping down of those other two guys in the House of Reps race. So, but for the Senate, that's where the battle line is drawn between what I think it's the Punch newspaper calling rebels. So we'll all see how it pans out today. It's a very busy day. Just outside this place, a lot of activities, politicians running helter-skelter. But I can assure you at this one that most of the job was done last night. What you will see play out today is, must be the result of a whole lot of us trading, meetings among politicians, deciding on what to do, and some kind of also step it down. I think what's curious is to see that, the governor of Imo State doesn't toe the line that the Senate should go to the southeast, something that, Kalu has been, former Governor Kalu has been, championing for a very long time, backing the Akpabio's choice. Is curious. I'm sure a lot of commentators will look at that and wonder why there's no clarity why he doesn't want someone from the southeast. Something that Kalu has been championing, and now even Kalu deciding to play the number 2 role in the Senate to become deputy Senate president if Yari makes it. So we're going to see how that works out. It's going to be a test of wills, and it's going to be for Tinubu, of course, the president. For him, it's his first test, almost a litmus test on how much he can do the job of aligning or realigning his base for proper coordination. So we'll watch interestingly to see how it works out.
Whose strategy works out best? It's interesting that Musa, Carlo, Yeri, three of them were the senators who went to see the NWC of the APC with the chairman at the office. I was at that meeting. Musa, one of them, has stepped down. So it looks like Yeri is losing some of his foothold. But let's look at some interesting news still on this day and The Guardian. If you look at this day, it says President signs students' loan bill into law, fulfilling one of his campaign promises. And just down beside, that's black strip. Fraudsters potentially steal more than $280 billion in COVID-19 relief funding. And you wonder how this happened under the noses of those who were in charge and they could not detect it. And if you go to Guardian, heavy rains leave Lagos roads in shambles. That's the story of Lagos almost every year. Emmanuel.
Yeah, very interesting stories. Yes, the COVID story, it's a throwback to some of the crises that some people actually also noted at the time, that COVID was actually a conduit pipe for so many things. Some people even doubting, having their doubts around the issue of COVID. And it's amazing that some people were able to build a fortune or make a killing from what was a disaster. We'll be talking about blood money here and talking about cashing out on people's on crisis. But this story is going back there. But again, like we always note, so who is going to get punished? Who is going to get what names are going to be wheeled out, and what's going to happen? In some cases, people are just left with their conscience when this kind of stories are mentioned. If you really cash out on an epidemic, that is serious. And we've seen examples of this again and again, whether it's people cashing out on, flood money, money spent for communities, ecological funds, security funds, all sorts of people. It's almost like, a recurrent story that will follow from time to time. Money meant to alleviate suffering, money meant to deal with certain situations. Few individuals cornering those money and making a living out of it. But that's not even the sad part of the story, is that, hardly do you see anybody getting some serious knocks and some serious punishment for this. And we cover them, and then, of course, what can we do? We'll go to the next story in most cases. But it's a good thing that we're going back to COVID and looking at what happened then, and trying to see whether we can actually explore, to see whether we can, put in context what really happened to those funds during the COVID crisis.
Emmanuel, let's circle back to the biggest story right now in Nigeria. And if you take a look at the Guardian Nigeria and that picture, the leading photo on the front page this morning of President Tinubu in front of that chessboard, it says lawmakers edgy in last-minute battle. Guardian Nigeria. Lawmakers edgy in last-minute battle for Senate leadership. And you also have these days saying Tinubu pulls all stops for Akpabio and Abbas. I want us to talk about the principle of separation of powers, Emmanuel. What are your thoughts about the level of interference by the executive arm of the government when it comes to the lawmakers' internal affairs?
It's disturbing because Nkechi, eventually it defines the kind of relationship that exists between the executive and the legislative arm. We only talk about a rubber stamp kind of assembly, where the senators or where the Senate president will take orders directly from the president, or at the state level where House members are sometimes called house boys, practically because of the fact that they have to kowtow to the executive. Because the executive too actually plays a very leading role, especially at the state level, where you don't become speaker unless unless you are actually anointed by the governor of the state. Makes it very difficult for any kind of control, any kind of serious supervision, and the sort of work that separation of power was meant for, which is serious checks and balances of the excesses of the other arms. So so the executive exerts this kind of really strong influence, and the Guardian newspaper captured it very well with that, that infotech there, or the painting of Tinubu sitting there, like the Lord of the National Assembly, something that shouldn't be. Members of the National Assembly were supposed to choose their leadership so that they can control clearly what happens in the executive and all of that, at least check it and balance it as the case is. But this picture clearly shows that, look, it's up to the whims and caprices of those in power, those in the executive, to determine, to decide what happens. Some people will say, no, well, it's a party thing, and the president, being the leader of the party, should take some interest in who emerges the leader. But therein lies also the problem of control, the problem of the kind of separation of powers that Nkechi, you are referring to. It's an academic, serious academic exercise, but what we see happening here is a situation where we don't have a strong-minded Senate. But again, the Senate President, the incoming Senate President, could decide to be a man of his own, even though it's coming out of a process that seems to be skewed, seems to be teleguided, seems to be, pre-decided by the executive. So, and that's the kind of National Assembly, I guess, everybody is looking for, one that will be able to checkmate the excesses of the executive, decide to, be a force of balance in the power equation. So, and that's what a lot of people wish to see. Legislative arms that are actually independent, free, and prepared to do it. But when they are compromised ab initio because of the process, this sort of process we are seeing of the emergence, you begin to wonder, Nkechi, like everyone is wondering, the kind of Senate and the kind of House of Reps we're going to have.
It does seem like you're damned if you don't and damned if you do. How do you strike the balance between being independent and having a smooth working relationship between those arms of government? Looks like that's what they have to figure out. Well, Arise News will be covering the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly today. All eyes will be on the legislature of the country, a very important arm of government. Emmanuel Bello, thank you so much. I think that's about the time we have for the press review this morning. We do appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow to talk about all the drama, if any, and whatever plays out today at the National Assembly. Well, you can share your views on the burning issues. Follow us on Twitter at Arise TV.